Hello everyone and welcome to Season 6, Episode 27 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches of 2021 with match number 24 on our list, which is the title for title death match between the Big Japan Wrestling Deathmatch Heavyweight Champion Drew Parker and the GCW Ultraviolent Champion Alex Colon from the GCW Homecoming Weekend 2021 Night 1 event held on July the 24th of 2021. This, in my opinion, is the best death match of 2021. It is the best death match of the past couple of years, I would say. It is phenomenal. This match has a really big fight feel to it, and it was actually on the undercard of the same event that had the Nick Gage and Matt Cardona match that made our countdown earlier, and that received a lot of hype. So I feel like this match, in a way, kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit as it was overshadowed by that main event. But it is better. It is phenomenal. And I talk about a big fight feel for it because this is title for title. And it kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. You have Alex Colon that became the first GCW Ultraviolent Champion at WrestleMania Weekend in 2021. Made perfect sense to be the first title holder. You know, he's kind of been the guy. I talked about him the other day. You know, he won 3 consecutive Tournament of Survivals. He's really carried the deathmatch portion of GCW on his back. You know, much like Matt Tremont and Nick Gage kind of did, you know, before him. He really carried it. So, you know, not only is he, you know, putting on his title on the line in a big match, but kind of out of nowhere, he gets the biggest title shot of his career. Drew Parker is a wrestler from the UK that was kind of like a UK hardcore wrestler, and I'll be completely transparent. Wasn't ever really super impressed by him in that UK bubble. He, you know, would take some risks and some bumps. But, you know, didn't really feel like a deathmatch guy. Just kind of felt like a hardcore wrestler. He ended up going on, I'll say, excursion with Big Japan, I guess. And this really developed him into this sick, crazy, ultra-violent wrestler, for better or for worse. But before he went to Big Japan for his extended stay, he appeared in GCW kind of like right before the pandemic kicked in. And had some really fun death matches there. A really good one with Jimmy Lloyd, I remember. And that was kind of where I first started to really be impressed by him. He rose through the ranks of Big Japan, and just a couple of short days before this match, you know, happened. This match had already been announced that Drew Parker was making his return, you know, from Japan. He won the Big Japan Deathmatch Heavyweight Championship, which was amazing. I certainly didn't expect him to do that. And all of a sudden, GCW really struck while the iron was hot and was like, you know what? Okay, let's do it title for title then. So when you get title versus title matches, especially when they're interpromotional like this, you kind of, you know, always have the cynic in you that expects that maybe it's going to go to some sort of a draw or a no contest. And that's kind of what I expected here. I was hoping it wouldn't be the case because that would be so underwhelming. But, you know, I really didn't see Parker picking up the Ultraviolent title, just in the event that, you know, he was going to be going back to Big Japan. You know, I didn't know how long his stay in the US would be. I certainly didn't see Alex Colon winning the Big Japan title, considering he, you know, hasn't really been over there for Big Japan. So really a lot of intrigue with this match, but I was expecting, you know, some sort of a non-finish. And, you know, the nice thing is we got a finish here. We got a decisive outcome. I was surprised by it, but it was great and it was satisfying. And this match is so good. It is brutal. It is barbaric. It has a super hot crowd. It is so innovative, and both of these guys are so good at, you know, taking all of these standard deathmatch weapons, you know, light tubes and panes of glass, and putting these like creative twists on them. So for this match, they have a whole bunch of light tube bundles that are taped to the ropes. And it starts out with some really nice wrestling. Both of these guys are superb wrestlers as well. You know, they're deathmatch guys, but they can certainly hold their own in outside of that deathmatch realm. So we get some really great wrestling, and something that I love is our first light tube strike in this match really comes out of nowhere, where they're doing just like this wrist lock sequence, and all of a sudden Drew Parker just like sticks his arm out, grabs a light tube, and smashes Colon with it. It was really cool. It was really unexpected, and it upped the intensity of this match right away because Alex Colon's like, okay, that's what we're going to do. Quickly throws Parker to the outside, hits him with a light tube bundle assisted tope, sits him in a chair at ringside and hits like a running double knees with a bundle of light tubes across Drew's chest. So this is a really great way to really up that octane in this match very quickly. And like I said, the crowd is with them here. They are pumped for this match. This show had a huge crowd. It kind of felt like the first, real, outside of WrestleMania weekend, I guess, to an extent, like, okay, indie wrestling is back. We have a big crowd here. Again, for better or worse, if that's the safest, route to take, but it happened. And they do so much good, playing to the crowd. Both of these guys, too, have a lot of physical charisma and are kind of able to exude that out to the crowd who rallies behind them. So Drew Parker does this spot that I'd seen people do before. I can't remember. Like, I want to say it was like Sin Bodhi or like somebody, which sounds really weird. But Drew Parker does a spot with darts, being from the UK, where he throws darts into his opponent's back. It is absolutely sickening. But they do that spot here. But again, they're so good. As he's throwing the darts into Alex's back, he takes him to each side of the ring to do it so that every paying fan, gets this great visual of, the darts sticking, so deep into Colon's back. It's gross, but, all of the blood marks in the crowd love it, right? All the vampires in the crowd. Alex Colon, though, he gets a comeback, and he does this just amazingly innovative spot where he puts a light tube bundle like across the back of Drew's head and hooks his arms. And, we've seen, Danny Havoc kind of, innovate the light tube dragon suplex, and you kind of think he's going for that. But then he just simply kicks the legs out from Drew. So Drew kind of does like a flat face bump, but as he's coming down, the force of the bump breaks the light tubes behind his back, the back of his head. It was super, super cool. I feel like I hadn't seen it before. Maybe I had, I don't know. But then Colon, not to be outdone by Drew, he carves, Drew Parker up with a light tube, but the same thing takes him to each side of the ring, for that gratification. So little things like that I really appreciate that, some deathmatch wrestlers, they just worry about, spot, get through, survive and not, mess myself up too badly. But they don't necessarily think about, taking the crowd on their journey with them. And that's what makes these two, two of the deathmatch elite. We get just some like big moves, lots of stuff with tubes. Drew gets like this great like lucha evasion, like ace crusher, where he like is getting whipped into the ropes and kind of like threads through the ropes and comes back on with this cutter. He gets a Van Terminator with light tubes. He goes on this great offensive run. He hits a big tope con hilo, and then he hits a DDT off the top rope through this huge light tube log cabin. Which was really, really great. Colon, of course, weathers the storm of all of that. He goes for that kind of like evasion ace crusher again. And something that I loved is they play off of Alex Colon, who's just coming out of that Tournament of Survival, his third straight win in that tournament, with his win over Atticus Cogar, which is a match I just talked about the other day. So he avoids this ace crusher the second time and then goes into the same sequence he used to win Tournament of Survival, which I thought was really great. He hits this big sleeper suplex. He goes for, the go to sleep to the back of the head, but Parker's able to counter that and hits this Death Valley driver. And in the corner, they have a door, but the middle of the door is like hollowed out and replaced with a pane of glass. It was really crazy. And Drew hits him with this DVD into it, but they hit like way more wood than glass, and they just bounce right off of it. It is brutal. This is like a thick door too, because you're meant to go through the middle of it, right through the pane of glass. So he goes to like do it again and repeat it, and Colon just counters and just pitches Drew through the glass pane in the center of this door. It was really awesome. It was really brutal. Colon, follows suit, just like he did with the carving of the light tubes after the darts. He goes on this big offensive run. He hits a Death Valley driver on the ring apron. He hits his tope into a DDT on the floor. He goes for a Spanish fly. They have this like other crazy contraption, and it's two panes of glass. But in between, they have like 2x4s that are kind of like propping these panes of glass, apart from each other, almost like bookends. I don't remember ever really seeing a contraption like that. But Alex goes for the Spanish fly through it, and Drew counters and hits this huge superplex through it that looked awesome. They had it like leaning against an open chair. Follows that up with a big swanton bomb. That only gets him 2. You know, we've seen so many times like Alex Colon fire up in these death matches and go into this fighting spirit and no-sell stuff. So, you know, he starts to do that, and the crowd is just amazing here, completely going nuts. Both guys, you know, they start trading forearms and big shots. Colon kind of gets that, you know, go to sleep to the back of the head. It kind of gets like as a pop-up, like completely out of nowhere. And he grabs, you know, his single arm Sabu style camel clutch. And this had been his, you know, finish that he'd been using. And I talked about this a little bit in the Kogar match where, you know, it kind of feels like after all of this violence, like the finish with the submission move is a little weird, but it kind of makes sense where, you know, he's really legitimized this hold that after somebody, you know, has experienced massive bloodletting and all of this pain, they just pass out in this hold because they can't take anymore. So, you know, they tease that being the finish here. Parker's able to get the ropes and fight out of it. Colon again, you know, goes back to the well trying for that Spanish fly. They have a pane of glass with barbed wire on it, but Drew slips out of that, hits a burning hammer through the barbed wire pane for 2, hits another swanton bomb, but holding like a bundle of light tubes behind his own back. That only gets 2, and just in what I thought was this beautiful twist finish, Drew Parker slaps the camel clutch on Alex Colon, kind of gives him a taste of his own medicine, and, you know, Alex Colon, he has no choice but to pass out, and I loved, you know, the twist on that finish that he uses so much, and, you know, when you build something up as this legitimate finish, you know, what a better way to put it over than to losing to it yourself, I thought. I don't know, I thought it was cool. And that was it. And Drew Parker, you know, would win the GCW Ultraviolent title. We got a satisfying finish. The crowd loved it. He really wouldn't, you know, do much with the title. He would defend it the next night against Jimmy Lloyd. He would defend it in Big Japan and lose it to Masashi Takeda, who would come back to the States and drop it to Alex Colon. So, you know, we never really got the satisfying payoff here of Colon, you know, beating Parker again for it. But Drew Parker is now, you know, he's left Big Japan. Just at the time of recording this video, he actually won the deathmatch heavyweight title for a second time, kind of unexpectedly, you know, just like the first time when he won it, where it kind of felt unexpected. He had already announced that, you know, he would be leaving Big Japan and, you know, going back to the US and back to the UK. And Big Japan, you know, what an honor they bestowed upon this young man. They, you know, had him win the title basically in his last match with the company and allowed him to vacate it, you know, just as a thank you for everything that he had done in helping carry Big Japan through the pandemic. So, you know, Drew's back in the States. I hope we get a rematch with these two somewhere down the line because they tore it up here. Like I said, one of my favorite death matches in the past couple of years. A great, you know, return to form. People will say on social media, deathmatch wrestlers especially, that deathmatch wrestling kind of carried independent wrestling throughout the pandemic. Whether that's true or not, I'm not going to say. But, you know, they, with a full crowd, you know, a hot crowd here, it really showed, you know, what was missing during a lot of those shows with an electric death match with a super hot crowd. You can watch the replay of this event on Fight TV. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again next time as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.